Hi guys, Bob here, and in this video I'm going to show you how to animate in Sketchbook Pro. So I've done a wee bit of animation in my time. I've done some apps for mobile phones where you had to animate sprites, and I'll introduce you to that in this video. So let's get straight into it. Hope everybody's well. Cheers. This is the default layout, and I've obviously got my own brushes here, an old drawing that I did a while back. So let's just go and I'll show you immediately how you do this. So go to File, and if we go down to New Flip Book, and we can do it from an image sequence or from an empty flip book. So we'll go with empty flip book and we'll get started there just with some simple stuff. This dialog pops up and we've got HD. You can change it to 1080p if you want, 720, or you can customize it. If you're making a small GIF, you'll not want to be going to this larger canvas. 24 frames up to 30 frames. For anybody that doesn't know, 24 frames is normally what it takes for a second of footage, of movie footage. Something I learned recently as well is that 24 frames also gives you a blur effect, which you don't particularly get when you go higher frame rates. That's more to do with videography. 240 frames max, that's about 10 seconds worth. Maximum is 1000, so I'll just click OK at that, and I get this blank canvas. So got my blank canvas, and down the bottom here I have got the timeline. I've got, if I hover over it, it tells me insert empty frame, duplicate keyframe, clear keyframe, and add keyframe, and then we've got automatic keyframe over here, loop your animation, and this is what's called onion skins or ghosting, and those are, you can ghost 2 frames in front or 2 frames behind, so you see your image from 2 frames before, 2 frames after. You can actually increase this to 10. You can increase this to 10, which, you know, I'm just going to leave it at 2 because that's a good amount. Sometimes I would even put it down to 1. You can turn it on and off just by clicking these buttons, and again I'll show you that in a wee minute. Down the bottom here we can actually see more of our frames. Up to 39 frames can be displayed. Never tried to actually increase this to see if it helps. You can also increase the size of that. Now I can go to 51 frames. Let's see. 63 frames. So I wonder if that's the limiting factor, because previously one of the problems I've had is that when I increase the size of this, I am stuck with the amount of frames that can be ran at one time. And this, by increasing that size there, I seem to have increased myself up to 75 frames now. So that's interesting. That's a bit of a trick that I've just found out literally just making this video. We start off with frame 1, and let's say we draw the simple thing of a ball. And we then, if we want, we can insert an empty frame, add a keyframe to that, which gives me my white bit. So we see this here, we see this here. This is where we want ghosting to come on. So if I turn ghosting on, I can see my previous ball position, and then I can add in another ball, or I can add in the next point that that ball is going to take. Obviously I'm trying to keep the size the same. You could actually copy paste. So just add in another one, add in another one. You can see I've got 2 frames before, 2 frames after, but because I don't have any after, there's nothing showing, and I have got it off at the moment. Add another keyframe, because we've only got 2 now. I can increase that, like I said, to 4, and it'll give me all the frames from previous, but we'll go back to 2. Add keyframe, and the more you start doing this, quicker you get. So that's me actually did my first ever animation. I'm going to bring it down to the amount of frames it is, which is 29 frames. And I'm hoping when I go back and I play, we're going to have a ball that kind of bounces and goes off the wall. As you can see, it sort of works. I could have taken more time, but that was within a few seconds. And we could add funny faces, we could do whatever we like to it. And that's kind of it. You know, that's kind of the basics of animation. You take an image, you fast forward it. Obviously, the more complicated the image, the longer it's going to take you to animate each frame, and you could have went with shorter in between points as well. We're 6 minutes in, we've done our first animation in 6 minutes. That's all it took me. You'd probably have a bit less because I fast forwarded me drawing all those circles. So at the beginning of this video I put up a image of Sakura jumping down and running towards the screen and punching it, and that was to get your attention because that's the animation I did a while back. For 2 seconds of animation it took me 18 hours to draw all the cells, put them together with a music, and then get it uploaded to YouTube. So I'll put that video at the end, but for the moment But for the moment I will take you back and I'll just do the other thing. So when I said at the beginning you go to new flipbook, new empty flipbook, what we can actually do is go to new flipbook from image, and it's opened up at my dad drive because it's dad's art, because I'm a dad. And what I've got here is I'll initially do my initial pencil drawings. If I click through them, click open, all the images will be resized to 608 by 1080. Click OK. I'm not going to bother saving my, I'll save my bouncing ball. Saved. So it's now opening up the images that I drew. This was a quick sketch, and this was me looking at the animation intro to Naruto, where Sakura jumps down from the above and she then runs towards the screen and punches it. So I kind of used that as my reference photos, images. All I did was download the video, the intro, and then went through using VLC player, and I paused each frame to then figure out what does it look like, and it looked kind of like this. Now it looks a bit weird as I click through, and you can see the drawings aren't anything spectacular, but it was generally the motion, and so if I just play that through, it looks like this. Now I took that as my base design, and then if I just do the same thing, file, new flipbook from image sequence, and I put in the finished version, if I put in the finished version, click open, okay, no to that one, and this takes me to my finished version, which again we've got this issue where it doesn't go back to the first frame. You can see here I've drew it. It looks stupid. But there's motion blur here, which was added in using Photoshop. Now I haven't found a similar thing. You could probably use a blur brush or a smudge brush to get this effect in Sketchbook Pro, but I haven't done that. If I play it now, and you can see I need to increase how many frames I'm showing. So we do that by this little indicator here. So we're looking for 33 frames, and we'll start again. So that's the animation that I created using Sakura. Again, it could be tidied up, it could be made better, but it was a trial, can I animate in this program, which at the time was Photoshop, and this is what I came up with. What I did find was that there is a layer limitation. There's a background colour background, a midground and a foreground. Some people use a lot more layers than that when they're animating. That's the limitation that's put on you by Autodesk. What I would say is it's sometimes easier to go out and don't do your animation straight away. Come up with what the cells are going to look like. There's an animation technique called rotoscoping where you take a clip of a movie, for example, and you copy and you trace over the image to get the person's body shape. You then pull that in and use that to help you with your animation. That's totally plausible. I would definitely recommend that for anybody who's getting started out, because it does make a difference being able to have an idea of what an animation is and how to do an animation. Even if you go back and get an old Tom and Jerry cartoon and you download a clip from YouTube, whatever it may be, put it into VLC player, and then the E key nudges each frame forward one frame at a time, and it gives you that time to like print screen, pull across to your digital art as a copy paste, and then copy around it. You've got frame one, you do the same for the next frame, you do the same for the next frame, and that would give you a very realistic way, especially if somebody's doing like a run sequence or something. Another thing that you can do is look for what's known as sprite sheets online. So if you've got a favourite character like Sonic or Mario or a Pokemon, whatever it may be, and they've got a computer game, there's a good chance that there's what's called a sprite sheet out there. For example, this one here is somebody's running sequence, and it helps because it helps the shadows about how the body turns and the hips sway from side to side when somebody's running to give you a believable run sequence. But you can literally take this, cut out the image frames, put it into your animation in Sketchbook Pro or whatever program you're using, and you've got a ready to go sequence of running. You can then modify that drawing with the character details that you're looking for, and it just is shortcuts of like this that happen to take place. In the big bad world of movie making, they don't animate every cell. They look for shortcuts, they look for hacks and how they can make things quicker. It might be that they use the same head in various sequences throughout. They may use the same static background. If you ever watch a cartoon, the background is a static image for the most part, and the only parts that move is the parts that they want to move for those particular seconds. Similar to cutscenes in games, they use green screens and they use actors, and they map their movements into a computer and overlay onto a 3D model in 3D space to make that animation move. They try to find the shortcuts possible. So in animation, it's definitely about trying to find how can you reuse your assets that you've built up, how can you reuse your drawings. If this has been useful to you, please remember to like, subscribe and hit the wee bell notification. I wish you all the best. So to help you out on some tips and tricks with digital art, I've got this video up in the corner. I've got the animation that I made of Sakura, and I hope you are well. There's other videos on my channel, and wee Bob is out.